We are live at Zipline Brewing Company. Avarie Howard alongside with me. You also have our good friend Andrew Rogers joining the show on Keep It Real. Andrew, what's up? Oh no,
I'm repping the former T-shirt.
Okay,
3 for 3.
Okay,
3 for 3.
So Andrew claims that he buys a T-shirt. And
I don't claim. I know.
We'll win the Men's College World Series. So, are you going to tell us who you're picking now or later on the show?
I'll tell you when you guys tell me to go bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
okay.
we're only allowing Andrew on the show for 15 minutes, and he's making.
Averie's already waving me goodbye. So
he was
I guess I
demanding to be on the whole show, but we have another special guest coming on pretty soon here that had quite the journey to get here, so he deserves his flowers. But Andrew, you'll be coming up on Tuesday to join us with our Men's College World Series coverage,
and you also have your show,
and you'll have your show too.
Plug
with your special guest.
With our special guest that you're stealing.
Wait, tell everyone a little bit about your show so they can look forward to it this week.
So Rogers Rules will air Wednesday and Saturday. So we'll have the midweek show and the championship show, and it's basically everything that I say goes. And Cam knows that. We just talk about whatever I want.
Okay.
All
right.
I can finally brand it to be that way.
Before we let Andrew talk too much, let's talk about our friends at White's. They are our premier sponsor of the Men's College World Series and all of our content. In baseball, teams advance by using research, statistics, and intuition. And at White's, they manage your money the same way. You can learn more at whites.investment/CWS. So plenty of good stuff there. We thank them very much for joining us for this ride of the Men's College World Series. It's going to be a fun time, and we're happy to have a partner alongside with us. Andrew Rogers, let's start with today and what we're expecting. North Carolina, Virginia up first. What are your thoughts and feelings on this first day?
Well, at first I thought, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk for North Carolina. From the very beginning, I was like, this is it. Like, this is North Carolina's chance to move on to the next round. And then I started reading more about Virginia. I didn't watch as much Virginia this year as I would like, but I started reading more about Virginia. And then I started thinking, okay, good rotation, pretty good back end of the bullpen. If their pitching can stay consistent, this team could be dangerous, but it's only one factor of the game. And then you look at their offensive statistics and you're like, this may be the best hitting team all around at the College World Series. And 8 of their starters are hitting over 300. So this is not only a team that's done it before, they've won the whole thing. They have great starting pitching. They have really good offense. You know, I shouldn't have underestimated them as much as I have. I'm a little worried for UNC. I'm a huge Vance Honeycutt fan. And I also think that UNC is trying to avenge what happened to them at around 2006, 2007, I think, if I have my dates right. So that first game is going to be really, really interesting because it's a battle of the ACC, and you have UNC, who was 4th majority of this year. They've been cream of the crop. Will they be able to hold off, though, a really good starting effort? Most likely. I haven't seen it drop yet, but I'm assuming it's Blanco.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
It's Blanco.
Yeah.
Avery, thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's easy to say that North Carolina is really exciting based on what we've seen from them. But also, like you said, you really dig into Virginia and you look at their numbers and it's easy. I mean, obviously, they're here for a reason. And they've been here for a reason 3 out of the 4 years. There's something in that foundation that gets them here over and over again. I think the thing that I think is tricky about Virginia when you watch them play versus some of these other teams, you don't sit there and you're not like wowed the entire time. It's not this crazy exciting version of baseball, but they're pretty sufficient in what they do and they're just pretty detail oriented. And, you know, you mentioned some of the numbers. There are 116 home runs on the season, which is kind of funny because, you know, that seems like a big number. And then you look like the Tennessees and you're like, okay, but it's still, it's a really big number. It's there, but like you mentioned, it's top to bottom. It's not like a two guys do the whole thing, 3 guys do the whole thing. It's a full roster that really gets involved in their offense.
Also think it's interesting, North Carolina, obviously their star pitcher, Jason DeCaro, is getting the start. He's just a freshman. So can the freshman hang on the big stage? I think will be another big question for UNC.
I also think just too that Virginia's been here the past few years and they also haven't got that result that they've wanted to. They've been one of those teams that's been kind of an early exit in the past few years, but they do have experience here. So, I mean, it's kind of a, they have the motivator of wanting to stay longer than they have the past few years, but they also have an experience leg up over some of these other teams that might just have the excitement to get here, even though they say that, we're not just happy to be here, but, some of those things do kick in. You're getting used to a new ballpark for the first time. I think that was a conversation we heard yesterday, a lot more than we heard last year. Like, I feel like that was a topic of conversation, just how the ballparks play and how the outfielders will adjust. North Carolina even said they're like, we're happy about the size of the field. That actually is in our favor.
Yeah, when you have Vance Honeycutt out there, it doesn't matter how big the field is.
Yeah, he was. There's been so many times at home this year that we've just run out of room, or at other ballparks, and he's like, that's not going to be the issue here. So I think that was an interesting perspective, but the Virginia experience I think will be obviously a benefit for them.
Game 2 of the night, Tennessee against Florida State. Obviously, the Vols being the number 1 seed and trying to. I mean, they have unfinished business in Omaha, right? They've been the 1 seed twice. There was a year, 2 years ago, they didn't even make the College World Series as a number 1 national seed. Andrew, thoughts on that matchup?
Well, Tennessee is not only fighting their own battles, but they're also fighting a historic battle in being a team that is listed as the number 1 national seed, but that team is trying to break a 24-year streak of not holding the trophy at the end. So there's a huge hill to climb for Tennessee and a lot of pressure. As well as they are put together, there is so much pressure riding on the shoulders of Tennessee because not only have their fans seen it over the years, but these players have been a part of this over the years. And it's like, when is the monkey going to get off our back? When are we finally going to get it done? There's just so much riding on that story alone that Tennessee may have to face a little bit of adversity and overcome that adversity early in order to really hoist that trophy at the end. Let's say they lose to the Noles today. It could be the best thing for them, because then they could ride the losers bracket and then have some momentum toward the end. And all they really need is to keep building on that momentum to snowball. And once Tennessee starts to snowball, it can be really, really dangerous for every other team in the field.
Yeah. Why do you feel like in the past few years, if you remember, I know it's been a few years that they've been here, they can kind of all blend together, but why do you think it's been when you've watched them here that it's kind of like, okay, they're a really exciting team, but then what happens when they get here?
Baseball is just one of those funny sports that you think that you should win a certain game and then the air gets sucked out of the building and you lose 4-3. And it's a team that you should not have lost to. I mean, I've been a part of so many games throughout my own career, throughout my coaching career, where I'm like, my team should not lose. We should not lose this game. And then one really good outing from a starting pitcher can just shut somebody down. You just lose all your offense. And if you're built highly off of offense, one home run can change the game. And so it's just one of those sports to where Tennessee just has to overcome those weird moments, those odd games, those thrillers, and be a part of the winning end of excitement opposed to the latter.
Yeah.
And Florida State's I think a tough matchup for Tennessee too, because I mean, truly they are playing with house money. Last year, they didn't even make the ACC tournament, right? It's a team that had this incredible turnaround, and I think the fans and the program, not like they're just happy to be here, but they're excited that they're in this opportunity compared to how last year was and just the defeat they felt last year. So it's a dangerous matchup, honestly, for a 1 seed and an 8 seed and a team that's expected to be here in Tennessee versus a team that, again, didn't even make their conference tournament last year.
Andrew, did you hear Link Jarrett's press conference yesterday? Have you seen any of the clip outs at all?
I haven't seen everything. I've been trying to follow along, but there's 8 teams that I'm digging into.
Well, everyone, do yourself a favor and go watch. It's been on Twitter, Instagram. Go look at Link Jarrett's small little snippet from the press conference yesterday. If you want to know someone that has more motivation in this tournament than maybe any other head coach, it might be Link Jarrett. Because he played there. He's an alumni there. He played for Mike Martin, and he mentioned, he's like, I ask myself all the time, what did we not do enough to get it done for him? And he has this, he kind of shares the speech that he told his players. He's like, you're going to walk out these doors, and you're going to see this fan base, and from that point on, your lives are never going to be the same because you're experiencing Omaha. But he's like, but our cabinet's still empty, and like, I can't do it. You got to go watch it. But that's the brief little piece of it. So if there's any group here that's motivated.
Yeah, they're motivated for sure.
I mean, they've got so much talent on the team too. So much. And then the 2 players they brought into the press conference yesterday were transfers, but like they know what they were walking into this year with this program.
Yeah.
They may be one of the greatest teams here that have never dogpiled. And that's telling a lot from a Florida State group that's just always here. Unlike what Ana said, I mean, last year was an anomaly. This team does not perform like they did last season, but they may be like I said, the best team that has never dogpiled. I got asked this question the other day, and I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on this too. The question was, which team at the College World Series has the most to prove? My answer was Florida State for that reason, but a lot of other people side with like a Kentucky because it's their first ever year and they're trying to build off of, what they've been able to accomplish as the number 2 team in the country. I think it's a little early to call them a team that needs to prove something, but I'm curious on your thoughts.
I feel like my instant answer is going to be Tennessee.
Same.
I say that because, I talked to Dylan Dreiling yesterday and I asked him, I said, is that number 1 next to your guys' name? Does that add more pressure? And he was like, you guys can spin it however you want. He's like, I know there's the curse around it, but for us, it's not, the seeding doesn't matter anymore. He's like, we've won everywhere else. So in our minds, like we have one more place to win. And so I think for them to have left as early as they've left the past few years, to be as talented as they are, like I mentioned earlier, when I said Virginia has a lot of home runs, with 116, they have 173. Like their offense is insane. Mm-hmm. And for them to come in here and not be able to just replicate what they've done all season, I think this is the true test. Like, can you get it done when you have so much talent and you've got so much, like just your resume, but you can't do it when it's the most important time? I think they've got the most to prove. Can they do it on the biggest stage?
Hey, another team we haven't even brought up yet, which I'll get into with day 2. Since Andrew, we're not going to talk to you tomorrow, let's talk a little bit about the games we'll see on Saturday. Kentucky against NC State. Most people know the story of NC State getting snubbed in the 2021 Men's College World Series due to some COVID protocols and some positive tests, and they were just completely taken out of the tournament. And I know members of that 21 team are coming back, and there's a few guys that were on that team. I know there was one at least that didn't play, but traveled with that team and kind of got to see the heartbreak. But I think they got to have a lot of motivation too to kind of avenge that 21 season. And I think it's a great story going up against a Kentucky team with the same motivation of never being in Omaha.
Well, and NC State was the underdog that season too. So coming in, it's not unfamiliar territory for this Wolfpack group. Yeah. One of the streakiest teams in the field. You watch them all season long. They win 5-6 games in a row. They lose 5-6 games in a row. Now they're on that winning streak of, hey, we've won 12 of our last 15. We're feeling pretty good right now. But my worry is, when's that losing streak coming again? Yeah. It's not just going to be riding a high wave, or will it? Could they continue to ride that wave and until they peak, fall back down after the season's over? That's the $1 million question to me. They're just a team I can't trust.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think when you look at the field too, they're the team that has one of the most losses. They have 21 losses on the season. But like you said, it comes at streaky times. So you don't know. And that other thing I think the separator between them and other teams, and I guess a negative way, is they're 9-12 on the road, where some of these other teams, they've played and performed pretty well on the road. I know this is a different situation, but it's not home field advantage for most teams at all. But the people that can feel the most comfortable on the road are the ones that have obviously performed well. And not to say that NC State hasn't found their way to get here for some reason. We saw what they did. They went down to Georgia and took on a Georgia team that was hot. Their offense is incredible, and they, got to Omaha. So it's interesting when you say that, because it is streaky and you have to make sure they're on the right streak at the right time.
Yep. For the nightcap on Saturday, Texas A&M against Florida. 3-seed Texas A&M, first appearance since 2022, but they'll be without their star Braden Montgomery due to an ankle injury that ended his season. And then the Gators, obviously the runner-ups from last year, but a different story for them, barely making the NCAA tournament and then turning absolutely hot throughout the postseason and finding a way to Omaha.
Yeah, you have Braden Montgomery that is looked at as the best player, I think, in this CWS field. And then you look on the other side and you're like, well, you remember that guy named Jack, who was like a guy that could pitch, a guy that could rake and kind of do all sorts of fun things. I mean, he's going to be a top pick in the draft too. And so I look at both of these teams and I'm like, gosh, what a blow for Texas A&M. But that team's still really good.
Oh, yeah.
Just one guy doesn't make a team in baseball. It could really help you in moments, because if you want your best hitter at the dish in the 9th inning, when the game's tied. I mean, if I'm UNC, I want Vance Honeycutt. I don't need my 8-hole hitter at the dish waiting for a fastball to hit over the fence. I want Braden Montgomery to do that if I'm Texas A&M. But all around, that team's a really good pitching team. Very good from start to end. They may be one of the best pitching teams in this field, and then their offense can build up from there. You'll have somebody that steps up for Montgomery. You saw that after the injury. They'll rally around him, and that could be the motivation they need to not succumb to the pressure, but more, move past all of those things. And then for Florida, I mean, you guys said it right. This team didn't perform all year, but they have the capabilities to perform at any point.
Yeah.
It may not look like it, if you just look at the win-loss column, but this is a team that has plenty of other draft-bound prospects outside of Jack Caglianone. The talent was never an issue for this team. It's just a matter of putting things together.
Yeah, I think that also just goes to prove, I mean, when Nebraska got the draw against Florida and Oklahoma State, I think some people immediately knew that that's going to be a tough game. Like, just because their record says that, like, this is a Florida team that competes in the SEC. Like, this is a team that week in, week in out, like, there's no breaks. And so I think it proved itself in the postseason that, the SEC, whether the record is strong or not, you're going to get against the best. So even when they were put up against the best of other conferences, I think they were already well prepared. Yeah. But like you said, on the Texas A&M side yesterday, Jace Laviolette in the press conference said, it was a gut punch to literally watch Braden Montgomery put a cast on at home plate. He's like, but I would be foolish to say that we're not going to miss him. But I'd also be foolish to say that we don't have the depth on this team, because someone made a good point this morning too, is that, they were waiting for Braden Montgomery to basically figure out if he was going to be available when he transferred from Stanford back in August. And so the coaching staff had to go out and make sure they had this depth, whether or not he was going to be here. And as we saw, Caden Kent came up huge. And Jay said it best. Like, we've got guys everywhere that can do it. It has never been a one-person show. Braden obviously is a huge help for them. But you mentioned it too. They've got it at the plate, 4th in the nation in home runs and 1st in the nation in shutouts. So I think it's 2 teams that are just playing really good baseball right now that you can't really count. Definitely Florida out, obviously. And then I'm excited to see what Texas A&M brings too.
Yeah, it'll be fun. 2 conferences too, ACC, SEC, the big powerhouses of college baseball going at it. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, Andrew. We've talked about it before too, but I think it'll be fun regardless, just to see those brands come to Omaha, those fan bases. It's going to be great. Andrew, before we let you go, tell us, what t-shirt are you going to buy in Omaha? And causation does not mean correlation, vice versa, but who is going to win the Men's College World Series?
Yep. Place your bets now and make sure to get them in before this team wins today.
Oh.
We are picking my friends from UNC, the Omaha Heels.
Is it because you like the colors? Is that why?
Not only do I like the colors, I base a lot of what I have to say off of the slogan. And when you look at the slogans from a lot of these teams, I was underwhelmed seeing Omaha's again. Yeah. Omaha was pretty cool, but Florida State is a choke artist of a team. They're not going to overcome whatever the curse. You were
so complimentary earlier. Now you're just like,
right. But now my money's on the line, Avery. So this is where I go into attack mode.
Okay.
Omaha Bulls, we've seen this before. This should say Volmaha, not Omaha Bulls. So a big miss by whoever makes. The teams don't even make these shirts. So I'm really hammering somebody because things that aren't their fault. Oma Cats, not a fan. Oma Howell, I wanted Oma Pack, so they didn't have a chance. Omaha for Kevin O'Sullivan. I was like, I mean, Anna knows what I would have done. I would have done Oma Haters.
Yeah.
And then
Haters.
This had to be a Trev Alberts thing, right? Like, how bad is this? Texas A and Omaha? What are we talking about? That had to be. That is something like, they did last minute, just like Trev.
We're like, crap, we forgot Texas A&M.
So Omaha Heels is the team to pick. I'm like I said before, I'm a huge Vance Honeycutt fan. And if there's any team I really want to see move forward, I have a rooting interest a little bit. I got a buddy that's a huge UNC fan. But in terms of exciting games, UNC puts together the best games. I mean, they are so exciting. And for the state of Omaha, we need that. We need excitement.
We do need excitement.
How many walk-offs from North Carolina?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's see.
Over, under.
I'm gonna make a bet.
All right, let's say 3. I'm gonna go over 2.5. 3 walk-offs.
Okay.
I think 3 walk-offs. That's wow.
So here's why I say that. Because in terms of what I've seen offensively from this team, they can either score 11 or 12 runs or they score 2. And if they score 2, they need their pitching to back them up. And it's going to be a late game heroic effort by somebody that propels them. Now, how many times are they the home team? Like,
right.
If they're a home team throughout the whole tournament, it's 3. That could obviously change if they're not considered a home team. Can we call it a 9th inning walk-off if they're the top inning?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's what I'll lock it in. I'm locking 3.
Yeah. I could get with 3 on that. All right. Andrew Rogers, thank you so much for joining Keep It Real. We'll see you in Omaha on Tuesday, and good luck with your Omaha Heels.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll give you guys
travel
a hug.
safe. We'll see you soon.
Hug goodbye.
Thanks. All right, we'll take a quick break, and we'll have a special guest join us next. Jack DeLonshaw joining us now, the man with a pencil, CEO, co-founder, founder, or even the co-founder. You're just the man of Pencil Talks.
We got to be a little bit crazy to be the co-founder, right? If it's just you solo dolo, but I appreciate y'all having me today.
Absolutely. Well, can you take us through your journey of getting to Omaha? Because
please tell the people.
Please just entertain us with your story of how you got here.
There's a lot of stories. So flops on the ground, not boots on the ground, folks. We took 24 hours and 36 minutes and about a 20-foot camper from Charleston, South Carolina to Omaha. Rolled in last night.
That's awesome.
Gotta really love it. That's for sure. And it was a blast. Slept at a couple parking lots.
I was gonna say, where did you sleep or did you drive overnight? Like, when did you take a break?
I think I stopped Carbondale. I don't even know what state that is. Yeah. No, I knew that. So we stopped in Illinois, slid into a parking lot, boot, rally the next morning, ready to rumble. So a little bit more comfortable than last year. Sleeping in the cars. We've got a nice little bed this year, and we'll be good to go.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I know.
This is the passion of college baseball.
It
is.
Like,
you love the sport so much that you will drive through a camper, you will drive in your car, sleep in your car to cover the College World Series. Why? Why do this, Jack?
It's funny. I think like being around y'all last year, for me, Omaha last year was kind of proof of concept for myself. Like, the dream is just to tell stories in sports. And that's the passion, right? College baseball, I love. I played it for forever. But really, to me, the beauty in it is that every single one of these guys has got a story. So last year, broadcasting games in the Charleston area, I wanted to see if my bubble, it existed in the mecca of college baseball, right? Because what I found was, and it's what I kind of assumed, was that yes, the talent is insane here, but the personalities and the characters are the exact same, right? And that's the fun, I guess, aspect of it, is diving into that and allowing those personalities to shine. So for me, like, making this trip year 2, last year, proof of concept. Year 2, we know it works. Like, we know that these coaches and these players are fond to kind of open up in a really genuine, authentic light that maybe they don't always have the opportunity to do. So, year 2, yes, you have to be passionate. You have to be crazy in love with it. But I think there's this really interesting, I guess, buzz around the sport. You guys have been around it, I guess, 3rd year covering it for y'all?
Anna's 4th,
studs. But it's getting bigger, right? It's growing like wildfire. I know the whole hashtag grow the game thing is like going viral, but like, to me, the game hasn't changed, right? It's coexisted like this for a long time. Man, it's just cool for us to be a really small part in helping tell that story.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think too, when you see the numbers of just what the regionals and super regionals have brought in, it's a like a loved sport. But to then just see that it's like I mean, maybe it's because like we were women in sports and playing our sport. We're like, wow, it's so cool to see that it grow. But like, you always think that baseball is being watched by everyone.
Yeah.
And to realize that it really hasn't been until like recently. And like, this game's always been big, but to watch the numbers grow the way they have been in the past few years, it's like, whoa, like I didn't realize that the game wasn't getting as much love as maybe we all thought it was.
Yeah. Non-revenue generating sport. Like that was no surprise to anybody, especially for someone like myself. I was a cockroach. I played college baseball for 6 years. Like they couldn't kill me off. But even, you know, I guess I finished up in 21 watching how it's changed in the last 4 years. I'm not sure if that's due to social media or just the way that we're broadcasting it in general. I think it's a flurry of a lot of different things. I think it's the way that we're telling the story, but more so, I think that there's this idea that it's the most relatable sport to me, right? Like it's such a representation of life in itself. So I can take a non-sports fan and get them to fall in love with some of these characters this week because it is so relatable at the core of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So for people that are unfamiliar, can you tell them why you have a pencil in your hand at all times?
Yeah, I probably should.
We should probably say that. We're just used to it. So I mean, we said pencil talk, so people might get it, but please explain.
They probably won't, and rightfully so. I'm a big Ted Lasso fan, so be curious, not judgmental. There's a lot of judging, and rightfully so. I'm the idiot that walks up to players and interviews them with a pencil instead of a microphone because microphones are wildly overrated. So to me, when I was in college, no, not thanks. That wasn't a slight.
I'm joking.
I wasn't cool enough to have used a real mic. So the origin of the pencil, I'm graduating from Charleston Southern. I'm playing baseball there. I did not know I needed an internship to graduate. Spring season, I'm playing. I'm like, I don't have time to get an internship. So I went to my sports information department. Was like, hey, I got this idea. Why don't I cover the team, do pregame, postgame write-ups? I've always been kind of curious in the media world. They go, yeah, sure, let's do it. I was a terrible intern. I always forgot the microphones, but I always had a pencil. So fast forward 4 years where I'm working in the corporate world, selling sunglasses, and I just missed it, right? So I started doing the broadcasting thing. I resurrect the pencil. And for me, y'all have probably know me well enough now, like the flops will be on the ground. Like it was more of a real authentic way instead of like putting on the suit and tie and taking the mic down there. Like it would have been true to me. And also I've kind of found that since I just left the dugout, all of a sudden the dudes in the dugout were able to resonate with the pencil because they're like, oh, this guy's just an idiot like me. So
he's just a baseball guy. I can talk to this guy. Yeah, for sure.
I love it. I was talking to somebody yesterday and he's from New York and he just moved to Nebraska to cover the Men's College World Series, and I think he works at one of the stations now in Omaha. But he was saying Omaha does it best in terms of NCAA tournaments. And I thought that was interesting because you think about like men's Final Four, college football playoff and stuff. Like he's been to like pretty much all of them. And he said Omaha does it best in terms of NCAA tournaments. And I just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on that because I'm kind of thinking like I've been to volleyball, I've been to men's basketball Final Four, and I haven't been to all of them, but nothing's really compared to in sense of community and like what's around the bars. Just everything is decked out in College World Series. Like it's not like that in other cities that I've been to that are having these events.
That's brilliant. And I'm not going to speak to it for other sports on their behalf because I haven't experienced it yet. But what I would say is I think it's because it's a consistent staple, right? Like outside of maybe the Rose Bowl for college football.
I heard someone say that too. It changes.
Right? Yeah, Rose Bowl
changes, right? So every year you head to your team in August and you sit around with a group of guys and go, that's the goal. It's tangible. It's palpable. You can touch it. This is the dream.
Yeah.
No other sport really is like that, I guess. That would be my take.
It's funny you say that because there was multiple times in the postseason that if there was a walk-off and a jersey gets pulled off, whatever, there's kids that have undershirts that say Omaha on them. They're not playing for Omaha. They're playing for their school, but the undershirts they've been given since day one say Omaha. Or like I've seen
on the dugouts.
On the dugout. Or like I've seen, I think it was Notre Dame a few years ago. They had like a mileage ingrained in something.
Yeah.
You guys do that
we
too?
had the same thing. Yes, it's like 1,830 miles.
And it's like all of these different places. Like their school is on their chest, but like somewhere else, Omaha is all over. And it's interesting we bring this up because yesterday I was listening to NC State's head coach talk about Omaha in the press conference. And this is also why I love this sport because I think everyone is so deeply rooted in it. And And I feel like
It's a small world for sure.
It's so
it
tight.
is. It's so
So
tight.
tight.
And so he was talking about, he's like, I get accused a lot of over exaggerating things. I'll tell people it's the best movie I've ever seen or whatever. And I do the same thing with the College World Series.
I'm that guy.
And he's like,
I'm that guy.
and he's like, I tell everyone it's the best place in the world. Like there's nowhere better for college baseball than here. He's like, I've got kids that call me after they played in World Series, MLB World Series. And they're like, Coach, you were right. Like it was Omaha. And we've been here for less than 24 hours. And my kids have already saying like, Coach, it's even better than what you sold. And he's like, and it's just from the production, from the way that the community is all around. He's like, it's not just a stadium. Like it's everything that surrounds the stadium, the way that they run everything. He's like, I know sometimes we give the media a hard time. Like this, you guys are giving them everything. And like, it can be overwhelming at times, but in the best way possible. And he said he looked out his window at the hotel. Maybe it was a few years ago in 2021, or it was this year. I don't know. But he was like, my players were playing wiffle ball with a youth team outside my window. He's like, we could win or lose, but that's what I care about. Like, that's what's, he's like, we're connecting baseball players. We're connecting the sport. And so I think there's that too. Like, if you're to take this event and put it in a San Diego or a Dallas or a Florida somewhere, I just think it just gets lost in the mix. And I don't know what it is about. Actually, I do know what it is about Omaha. We heard it from all the players yesterday. They thought there was just a baseball field, nothing else here. So I think they did. They were like, we thought there was just going to be a field and we weren't really sure what else was going to be here. So it pleasantly surprises people, which I think is the bonus. But also too, like people care so deeply about sports because there isn't a whole lot else to do. So like that's why the professional sports that Nebraska has here are the collegiate athletes. And so everyone cares so deeply. And so I think that's probably maybe a little bit to his point, but especially if you weren't from here and you expect it to be like everyone said, corns and cows and barns and that's it,
And you're like, well, there's a city.
Yeah. So
I was that guy last year.
Yeah. No, I bet you were.
We basically ran a poll with the players. We're like, what did you think Omaha/Nebraska was prior to coming versus now and seeing everything? They're like, oh yeah, we just thought it was corn and cows. And
a Peyton Manning snap count and like, about fields. Right?
Yeah. Someone was like, you never hear the name like Omaha, like outside of like college baseball. So like you didn't know if it existed. Like there was like
they thought it was like a mystical place.
Yeah, there's like 3 of them are like it's like Disney World. We like it felt like did they build the city for 1 week and then like tear it down and no one lives there? And we were like, there's like 1.5 million people that live in Omaha. And they were like, you guys live here? And we were like, yes.
But I think that's the mystique of it. Is this idea that like, and I'm not going to speak for these guys that obviously desperately want to win a national championship. Almost getting here is like greater than the trophy itself.
It's like the hardest thing to do.
But
and then you need the whole
remember
experience.
that forever.
I know.
100%.
And tell your kids, like I was the team that went to Omaha in whatever year.
They don't dogpile in super regionals by accident, right? Like there's a reason because just getting here in itself is like this aura that is so special. And I was definitely one of those dudes where I'm like 27 years old and I'm walking up to the ballpark getting goosebumps today because there is something magical about it.
I know. We talked about this yesterday. So it's funny because since we work here and we live here, we have to go cover games here and when it's not. And for a lot of people, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. And you're like, it's a lot different. It's like playing baseball in like a literal graveyard. Like there's no signage on the wall. And like, I get it. It's Creighton's home baseball park. I can imagine what it's like to say you play there, but like the capacity is so hard to, it's if 500 people could be at a college baseball game and that'd be great in certain stadiums here. It doesn't do anything.
It doesn't feel,
it feels cold.
Bare bones.
And there's nothing around it when we come down here. The park wherever you want. Like it's so when we come down here for this, even though we live here, it's like this refreshing excitement once again. Cause like
rejuvenated
you see people again and like the players and coaches are just walking through and happy to see one another and saying hello. And just, there's a vibe and something that like you cannot create in the stadium without these 2 weeks that even though we drive by it all the time, I have like depression after these 2 weeks because I have to drive by it. I'm like,
it is sad
shoot. Like every time I go to the airport, I got to drive by it. And I'm like, okay, how many weeks we got left? Like,
it's a literal hangover. I felt it last year driving home. I was like, I can't believe that it's over, but now it's like, you literally are counting down the days.
You are like,
so it comes back around.
The week after, you're like, wow, it was like changing. And then 2 weeks after, you're like, okay, everything sucks. You're like, what do we do now?
Jack, you've been covering college baseball all season long very closely, and we've been watching you too. I know you've gotten on some broadcasts and whatnot. Congratulations on all of that, by the way.
Thank you. I do.
We're watching. We see you. What have you noticed from the teams that you got to cover that are now in the College World Series? What are some of your synopses of those teams?
Well, I'm beyond blessed. I was able to do a lot of ACC games this year, and with that, I broadcasted 5 of the 8 teams here. So, and then the 3 that I didn't, right? Tennessee, Florida, and then brain farting here. Kentucky. I was able to go and see in Hoover. So have unbelievable connections with all 8 teams, which I'm super lucky for.
That's
but
awesome.
I had said all year covering this sport that I thought it was the best the game has ever been. And what I meant by that is it's old. Like they're just older guys. They're bigger, stronger, and faster than ever before. Not even close. I just felt like there was more parity in the sport, which is a word that we hear all the time, but it was true. Based from mid-major to Power 5, I thought we were going to get 2 or 3 mid-majors this year just because the sport was better than ever before. And I know that the country wanted those like underdog stories. Because the game is as good as it's ever been, you're seeing teams that are pouring in and investing in college baseball here this week. We've got 8 teams, right? And the underdog is Florida. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like seriously, they're the 3 seed, right?
Yeah.
For real.
So to me, when you look at this field, I think Kyle Peterson said it on Scott Van Pelt. It's the first time since 1948 2 conferences are representing this bad boy.
Yep.
And in 48, George Bush Sr. played in the dang World Series. So we're in a really unique opportunity to take in what might be, I think, the deepest field we've ever seen, right? Like the superstars here this week. I mean, we're going to have 8 of the top 10 picks, in my opinion, here.
Isn't that crazy? Because remember last year we were like, how are we going to top this ever, right? We were
insane.
like the pitching, we're seeing the hitting, we're seeing the guys that we watched last year are already in that MLB, and we're like, how are we? Or literally, I mean,
I don't think we can get another Skeens louder though.
We
like
can't.
That game will never happen again.
But it's like
the talent,
like you just said, the talent
crazy.
still. Like is it our? I don't want to put it out there to be too big, but it's like because the game is growing the way it is and developing the way it is, like, is this going to be more of a norm where it's like,
I think so.
Each year we're
100%.
seeing,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's not going anywhere because we're at this, like, these guys never played college baseball a decade ago. They were draft guys. They go and get drafted out of high school.
Right.
The draft was 40 rounds. Now there's more leverage. The NIL has opened up the opportunity for these kids to go make money in college. So you're seeing dudes that never played college baseball, right? Like, y'all saw them yesterday. These dudes are so insanely physical. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Like when you look at Florida, they got Brody Donay, who transferred from Virginia Tech, and Jack Haggs. When that battery do, you're looking at 6'6", 250 and 6'7", 240.
Those are football players.
I know.
What, you got D end and tight end? Like ready to meet the A gap? Like,
I know.
What's happening?
Gavin, I don't want to butcher his last name. Freshman on Texas A&M.
Grahovich.
Thank you.
No, like, you set it up.
And Jay Slavulette, they were doing infield yesterday at third base. And I was like, that is a sophomore and a freshman.
Teenagers.
That is a sophomore and a freshman.
They're teenagers. I look like a PVC pipe at 19 years old. Snap me in half, and these dudes are legit Power 5 DNs.
Crazy. It's insane. But I want to say right there real quick, because you brought it up. Mid-major, there was UConn team that had 8, 9 D3, D2 players on it.
Oh, the best.
Right? So what is it about? I mean, we can say all we want about the Division I talent. Obviously, we're going to see it. But when you look at top level D2 or even D3, like the game across all playing right now is just so talented. Like, why do you think it is that way? I know the one obvious is there's a still leftover spill from COVID because rosters were too big. But getting past that point, like, what is making Division II, mid-major, Division III baseball just phenomenal right now?
Well, I'll one up you. In my opinion, because I've had a lot of friends play NAIA, JUCO. Like,
absolutely.
This has always existed. Like, you'd go play in summer ball. Like, you'd have a guy from North Carolina go play with a D3 kid in the sticks of Virginia. And in those, like, experiences, I would look around and go, that NAIA kid is a whole lot better than me. Like, why isn't he right? And there was always that question. There's a lot of luck that goes in the recruiting trails. There's a lot of regional aspect that goes into it. So to me, there are a lot of, like, boo-hoo stories when it comes to the transfer portal. There's a lot of really awesome stories. Like Virginia's one that they went and poached some dogs from D3 Salisbury that have come in and not just been impact players. Like, they've been all-American type players. So to answer your question, I think that has always existed. I think the transfer portal has allowed these dudes to have the opportunity to come play on the biggest of stage, and they delivered almost immediately.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Talking about the MLB draft too, do you think we'll see more guys stick with college baseball rather than go out of the draft or go towards the draft from high school?
I think so. I think you have the opportunity to raise your value, right? Like, I can go to a Power 5 school and all of a sudden, like, completely change the face of who I am from a draft standpoint. You grow up, you become a man, you can make a little bit more money. And then all of a sudden, like 2-3 years later, you're a much better prospect down the road. So yeah, you're absolutely going to see that. I think we're even kind of looking at those collegiate Team USA guys that are kind of getting a taste of seeing what it looks like to play with a group of guys for a long time. And they might be a borderline 3rd or 4th rounder. well, how do you prioritize your college experience versus that? So I would say yes, but I also wasn't talented enough to get a call out of high school. So it's like, be tough to turn down that money.
I know. I was going to say, I feel pretty selfish with that answer too. Cause I've never had a couple $1 million laid on the table and say, but I think the thing is too, is like, the way that the college game is growing in terms of just maybe visibility, you know?
Yeah, no doubt.
There's something that you can't replicate about collegiate sports in general. Right. Yep. But I think when it comes to baseball, I want to watch these kids, in these next 4 years, and I want to see what they, and then it's hard because, they're going to go through the rankings and in the show and all that stuff. But it's like, we kind of lose them in the mix for a little bit. And then once they get there, you're like, oh yeah, that kid. Right.
And I can speak firsthand and I've got plenty of sources that would back it up. This idea that, and again, I didn't get to play big league baseball, so I can't really tell you. But
what do we know?
It becomes transactional, right? It's a business. Mm-hmm. They're so worried about their money, and like every swing is a valued currency. That this is the most pure, raw emotion that you'll see. And to me, I grew up a giant professional fan, right? I dressed up like a Houston Astro for Halloween like 7 years in a row. Oh, come on, don't do that to me. I just get kicked off the pod. But I say all that because you're looking at guys like I was in Clemson for the Super Regional.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
Talking to Jack Kaggs like right after they win this thing.
It was an awesome interview.
Right? Yeah, I appreciate that. But to me, it was cool because like I was one of those guys that was, are they even going to get in? Right? So they go and prove it to everyone. But you're looking at a dude that's set up to make a lot of money in a month.
Oh yeah.
He's going to be, in my opinion, the bona fide first pick of the draft.
Yeah.
Maybe the greatest player in the history of the sport. Yet when you talk to him, he was like, I'm terrified to take this jersey off for the last time. Even coming here, it's bittersweet knowing we walk away with a trophy. It's going to be the last time that I wear a Gator jersey. That gives me goosebumps because you're like, man, it personalizes these guys. It means something. And I don't know if that is reciprocated at the big league level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's what I meant by that. Like, obviously you're going to take your opportunity and like, no, not everyone can say you can do that. Right. But I think there's something that's because of the visibility, we're seeing the fandom that's growing. You're seeing that the tradition is so rich right now. Like every single program, like you look at Kentucky, they built this ballpark in 2019 to envision what they wanted and what they got this postseason. And it came true. And I've had lots of players tell me like, I've played other places. I've transferred here. This is the best atmosphere I've played in Kentucky. Right. So like there's opportunity everywhere. I know it's SEC school, but the last one to make it to College World Series isn't always known for baseball. Everywhere you go right now, like the tradition and the investment and making this experience for collegiate baseball players is so it's just different than what I feel like it's been in the past.
As much hate NIL gets, it has helped college baseball so much. Because would you rather be a guy that goes to the minor leagues, you got to bust your way everywhere. You're in low A, you're in double A, whatever. You're playing in stadiums. You're playing in stadiums with like 500 people, right? Or would you rather go to Arkansas and play in front of 7,000, 10,000 people and have a college that you're representing and friends you make for a lifetime and you get to stay in kind of one place. So I think it's becoming a lot more attractive to stay. And I think that's why we see the talent that we have now in college baseball. It's really only going to get better. Yeah,
you get out what you put into it. And like, to me, I know the storyline of the week. And what's so interesting about all 8 teams, I could see every single one of them winning because they all excel and they all abide by this identity. NC State and Kentucky are really interesting in that state because their storylines almost write themselves. Kentucky first trip for NC State, the vengeance of 2021. But man, NC State's a really interesting orchestrated roster in the sense that they've got insane freshman talent, but then they went and got dogs out of the portal. So it's like this really beautiful blend of like Garrett Pennington, a Wichita State guy,
Casey
Makarevich, right, an East Carolina guy. So they went and got grad transfers. They went and got old guys. That's like the old school transfer way. And they've almost like adopted these young freshmen. They've grown up through it. So that is another added bonus of like when you have set a really solid culture in place that it incentivizes these young freshmen to go, oh, cool. Like I get to go learn from a Garrett Pennington who's played D3, has played mid-major baseball. And now the guys in that locker room and the way that your experiences are prioritized makes it another huge value to making sure that you go play college ball.
Before we move on, there's a team that's not here that I think we were excited for game 3 because you were there. Like maybe one of the best baseball games I've watched and we last year, right? So like maybe it was a heightened experience because they were trying to be here. But I was like standing up in my living room, like standing. I literally was like by myself. I was like, like my heart sank going over Cam's head. And then when I like You were there. Like, can you even like verbalize what that was?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, so Clemson, Florida, Clemson, who was, I think, one of the few national seeds that didn't get here, Florida and Fuego, right? It goes to a game 2. Clemson's done so in the water, down 3. And Cam Canarello, who, if you haven't heard of him, super lanky dude, athletic as all get out, hits a 3-run homer to tie at the Senate Extras.
Top 9.
20 minutes later, he makes, in my opinion, catching college baseball.
Yeah.
Like, you told Elliot Avon's a little bit exaggerate. I'm way over the top, but it really
over the
like,
shoulder,
it was.
like touchdown.
to me, it was like the ramifications, right? Like, ball hits the ground, game's over,
Done.
season's over, right?
Season's over.
Dunzo. He pins it up against his chest, and the whole place, it was almost like this pause delay in the TV, like reaction. You didn't know, like we're like,
Yeah.
what
Moneyball.
Exactly.
It's like a Moneyball feeling.
I know.
It was a Moneyball.
Yeah.
So Clemson unable, but it was like the greatest 30 minutes of players ever had.
Yeah.
Like the sport. It was
Well,
nuts.
like, and like even the ejections, I was like,
Yeah.
let's
Jack was
go.
fired up. I've never seen him emotional like that ever.
Ever.
That,
So
and
I was
then-
in the camera well in the Florida game in the second inning. They were like, yeah, like we're luck. Like we made it to the national championship last year. Like come hang out with us. I was like, say less. Second inning, the bench is clear, and I go,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jack Cags kind of looks like a UFC fighter getting ready to rumble, like pacing the dugout.
Okay, I was gonna say they weren't showing it, but they
Rightfully so.
okay because they showed him kind of walk off the TV. You see him say a few things pretty passionately, not enough to figure out what it was. High-fiving really hard. After that, there was like showing of the dugouts. Was the dugout both of them just
Ooh.
like was there or what were we doing here?
I'll identify him as a whole. Doug, where Clemson plays, Package is a really passionate guy. He's a showman, really genuine. So he had called out Clemson fans after the regional. Was like, hey, this is not a country club environment. I appreciate you telling this thing out every time. I want to hear it angry. That was his words for him. They were angry. Like it was a hostile environment.
You can hear that,
Hostile environment after that ejection where they delegated for twits. Both dugouts, like they were like ready to like erupt. Man, that place turned into a war zone. So it's like you can see sort of feeling like they kind of may have gotten away with something, right? Clemson like almost shell shocked, and the fans are just right on top of it. So to almost eliminate that entire from the because we go to extra innings, there were 4 ejections. It was nuts, but it did.
That's what we need in college baseball.
Yeah.
Love it.
Best.
I know. Someone was like, "You don't want to go play for now?" Like, like I was kind of like, like.
All right, before we head into CM for game 1, Jack, give us your prediction for North Carolina, Virginia, and then we'll also talk game 2 of the day, Florida State.
North Carolina Virginia game. Obviously, these are teams that know each other really well. O'Connor and Virginia, right? Like he's the dang statue for them. Like, they're just a walking Omaha team. I made a joke that it almost feels like they must book their tickets in February, right? Ticket prices are down at that point. Let's get the flights and hotels arranged before we rock and roll. I think there's a lot to be said and a lot of experience. And I think North Carolina's game maybe translates a little bit better as Virginia loves to hit the long ball. Feels like Vance Honeycutt of North Carolina would make himself more money than like he may be able to imagine. So I like Virginia experience in that one. Griff O'Farrell at the middle of infield is a really good dude. And Jay Woolfolk, Team USA guy, former QB at Virginia, he's their X factor. He continues to throw the way he has last month, maybe for North Carolina tonight. And then tonight, I've been hearing Rocky Top in my sleep, but man, they're gonna have their hands full. Jamie Arnold is really good. Like we're probably looking at the first pitcher off the board in the draft next year for Florida State. James Tidd hit like 95 homes last week against UConn. They're in a really interesting spot because to me, I love how Tennessee's almost the narrative of we're the overall seed, but you forgot we weren't top 10 at the beginning of the year. And by the way, the number 1 lead hasn't won since 1999, so we're actually the underdogs. And they've like gotten me to believe in it. A little bit.
I don't think of Tennessee as the number 1 seed. Honestly.
No, I know.
You know what I mean? It's really weird dynamic. Me throw Chris Stamos, a kid from Cal, and then they'll go to AJ Cause, a guy that transferred from Jacksonville State, a subby guy. That's been a 1-2 punch. I think it's enough to keep Florida State off balance. So I think I'm going to continue to hear Rocky Top tonight. I'm all the way in. I think that 1 seed that I don't want to be chalk and say they win anything, but it feels like my early pick.
How many home runs does Tennessee hit?
I don't know. I'll tell
Just
you one
today?
thing.
Just
In
like
general.
tonight. Oh, yeah, let's go overall then. Let's go overall.
Oh boy.
I know it just depends on what games.
Right.
Okay, so let's just say
Per game.
Let's
go tonight then. Tonight. Okay.
8-2 is the score tonight. That one.
Okay.
8-2.
Christian has how many?
2. That is really good.
Give us a prediction for the winner.
Overall,
About that?
about that life, about
Okay.
that action. Staying on business. I said that there was going to be 3 mid-majors here. So there's more parity in college baseball than ever before. So let's go super, super chalk. I want to see Tennessee and Kentucky fans at each other's throat. So I got that's the Natty, the 2 highest ranked seeds.
Okay.
Super boring. I think it's Rockdale. I just think their depth has depth.
Regular season champs head.
Right?
There you go.
No, boring.
Avery?
But
Oh gosh, don't put me in the position yet.
You're not ready?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I already went with mine on Andrew's show, so mine's already out there. I think Virginia.
ooh,
I think
like
it's a little bit of a slump. They've got experience. They've got a chip on their shoulder this year and 2 one-run losses. Griffo Farrell's an absolute dog at short.
Oh,
I think they have the best, statistically, and I think those can translate well. Yeah, you can't hit as many homers in the CW, but we saw a ton here, so it's like, I think that narrative's a little bit now. So yeah, I went for the experience, and
I like it.
I think their coaching staff is so sad, and I don't know.
I like the pick.
It was a gut pick.
Well, my problem is I sit in the press conferences. I'm like, okay, I like them.
I love every
that was
team,
so
yeah.
good. Okay, wait, I really like you. And then I go to the next one. I'm like, shoot, wait, I really like you. Wait, that was a really good message. Wait, okay.
Yeah.
So and then now I'm like, okay, now I'm choosing my heart.
So now you're not going to tell us what?
No.
Go with your gut. See, I'm way over the top. Like,
worst.
I've done like 9 or 10.
I literally don't
I want to
know.
make this clear. I flip. I wear flip flops, flip picks so easily. I'm just saying, but
That's okay.
I'm tight with pretty much all the teams here. So like, NC State gave me my first break. They were my first ACC game. I picked them like 4 different podcasts. So like, that's a good story for me. So I look out for them. Sure. I don't know. It's gonna get weird.
Anybody can win. Truly, Florida could win too.
It feels like
The
Ole
Stars-
Miss.
That's why I don't genuinely. I've had people ask me, and I've straight up been like, I genuinely do not know.
You literally did this last year too.
Probably.
Come on. All right. So do you know what I did on our 11 points podcast? Flipping a coin was fun. We pulled up like fake, like automated horse races.
Oh,
8 of them, and then
nice.
whichever one won is who I took.
Which?
maybe I do that.
It was Tennessee.
Tennessee.
You know,
All right, Avery. We'll let you off the hook, I guess. If we're keeping it real,
Yeah, if we're keeping it real, I don't know.
she doesn't know. All
do a
right.
magic 8-ball.
Huh?
Do a magic 8-ball.
Yeah, I'll do that.
That
Well,
keeps it real.
yeah, we have another show on Monday, so by that point, maybe I'll see all.
Oh,
Oh,
that-
so
you
yeah,
can't do
teams get
that. I've
eliminated,
seen
and all of
it.
a sudden Avery gets to pick. That is so unfair.
Garbage.
I'm the mediator.
Oh my
I'm just here to see.
There you go. There you
All
go.
right.
I
Well,
love it.
Jack, thank you very much
I
for joining the
appreciate
show.
it,
Let's
man.
go get in that ballpark and watch some
Let's do
baseball.
it. I appreciate y'all having me. It was a
All right.
blast.
We'll have more all week.
Let's run it back.
We'll be back on Monday. Thanks, guys.